Hello, everyone. My name is Ned Dennison. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. We have a couple of special guests with us today. The first is honorary swimmer Dr. Mohamed Marouf, who became an international coach after retiring as a swimmer. And I want to wish him a happy anniversary because 30 years ago yesterday, he set the speed record in the Lake Zurich swim, which still holds today.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
There aren't too many 30-year-old speed records. Xavier, if you want to really upset him, you can go to Lake Zurich next year. I just say. Our second guest is Xavier Desharnais, an accomplished elite marathon swimmer from Quebec, Canada, who was on the circuit for 11 years, 2008 to 2018. In the last couple of years, we've interviewed several swimmers who found their inspiration as children and young adults. A few of them actually visited the International Swimming Hall of Fame Museum in Fort Lauderdale as children. Honoree Marilyn Bell was coached in the pool to start with by Honoree Gus Ryder, CM, and she also trained with Honoree Cliff Lunsden, CM. And then every marathoner in their late teens and 20s who swam with Honoree Claudio Pitt got some inspiration and an education. Xavier, you had the luxury of growing up in Quebec, a hotbed of marathon swimming from the mid-1950s. Lake Saint-Jean, Lake Memphremagog, Saguenay, Haspéac, Latuque, and many more. And you saw the pros racing. I think it was in Lake Memphremagog. Tell us a little bit about your early pool swimming.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a town near Magog named Sherbrooke, where there's a swimming club there, and I always loved swimming. But there was a switch in me when Marouf came and became my coach in 2003. I almost quit the year before that because I started high school and I said, oh, I must study and I must focus on study and not on swimming. But then Marouf came, we talked, and he really believed in me, and that's when it really started. And at the same time, I was old enough to see all the older swimmers in my swimming club who were attempting Lac Memphremagog crossing. And I remember really well David Bilodeau, Mathieu Leblanc. Those were two very different swimmers. David was really a long distance swimmer, accomplished in the mile. He was fast. He came second, I think, in 2000 or 2001. Or maybe even before that. And Mathieu was the sprinter, only 100 free, 50 free. And when Marouf came, Mathieu Leblanc, maybe Marouf, you remember this, but he asked him, I would love to do Lac Memphremagog. So Marouf coached him, and he a sprinter, swam 34K, and that really inspired me. I'm like, oh, I'm a long distance swimmer, and this sprinter's doing it. I'm sure I can do it as well.
So when you went into high school, you were worried about studying. You weren't interested in girls and cars and drinking?
Well, no. I must say it was mostly my parents who were like, "Oh, you're getting into high school now. It's serious." So I decided to just like, "Oh yeah, you're right." But I always had a facility in studying, so I never had to really put the effort until university. So I realized I was just bored in high school. You know, I had great marks, and I was missing swimming. So that's at the same time Marouf came back, and it just clicked. And I'm like, yeah, I think I can swim a lot and be good at it.
So Mo, when you first met Xavier, was he a sure thing, or was he going to be a real project for you?
You know, it's really a good question because when I met Xavier, I know I coach everybody the same. I did expecting Xavier to be world champion for the first time, but you know, like by time I discovered out of stuff in Xavier, I couldn't find anyone. Xavier had surgery in his knee, and he has to quit swimming for maybe another year when he was 15 years old, something like that. But this boy, when he went to hospital, he was just mentioned when he went to the hospital, he was just ask his father like, "I'm sorry, tell my coach, you know, like I'm really sorry to quit training. I have to go back very fast." He was pushing his family to go back to swimming. So and he was kind of like, you know, when he came back, coming on chair at the pool deck, and he was just coming every day. He doesn't miss one day. Even he doesn't swim, but he's around the pool every day. So I find something like, you know, inspire me as a coach as well. I find someone like he's like admit to do something in swimming, and he want to be world champion, or he want to be a good swimmer. And he was kind of funny all around the pool. He was coaching with me, but the thing is, he doesn't miss one practice. Even the good, most of the swimmers were missing some practice, but he never missed one practice. Even he's in wheelchair, like, and he has problem in his knee, and he has surgery in his both knee. So in this time, I find he would be something. I find that this boy will be something.
And Xavier, I have on my records that 2008 Memphremagog was maybe your first big swim. Was it your first big swim?
Was. We actually planned to do Magog a year earlier, 2007. But like Marouf said, between 2004 and 2007, I had 4 knee surgery and 1 appendicectomy. I don't know if that's how you say it in English, but I had my appendix removed. And Marouf said it, like I between these times, except when I got surgery, I never missed a practice. Like even when I had my knee open, I came with my crutches on the side of the pool. I would duct tape my knee, put a pool boy, do some elastic, and swim one leg, and then the next leg would break. So I would do it again a month later. And so that's why we really try to prepare for 2007. We were doing a lot of open water, 5K, 10K. And 2007, I had another surgery, so we had to postpone the goal to swim the 34K. But when we arrived in 2008, I was more than ready, because I was doing some high mileage, tough training. I had been doing it for a long time. And I remember we had the 10 kilometer in Lac Saint Jean for the youth. And I just crushed it. Like no one was near me. It was one of the most horrible condition 10K the last years. And then this was the week before the 34K. So I was really ready to swim a 34K, but you never know until you do it. And the next week in Magog, I swam for the first time the 34K, and I think it went well for first time. We were really proud, and just to complete 34K for the first time is an awesome feat, and this is where it all began for us.
And when you look at swimmers like Petr Stoichev in those years, did you think you would ever come close to him?
Well, I had big dreams. Marouf didn't mention it earlier, but when Marouf came, I was the little chubby guy, funny guy around the pool. I was serious in swimming, but I wasn't the best. And what Marouf changed with me is that he really believed in me, and he made me believe in myself. And even though he said he didn't think I would be world champion, but he told me one thing. He said this guy in front of, I think it was Rick Say, a 200 meter freestyler. He came to train with us, and he said this guy is going to be in the world championship one day. And this is where it started for me. So I started believing in myself, and Marouf believed in me, and I believed more in myself. And when I started open water swimming, I knew I wouldn't be good, like the best at it at first, because this was the story of my life. I was good in the mile, and then better, and then better, and then better, and then we would pass the first one in Quebec in the 1500, and then go on to next goals. But Stoichev was a long. I thought I could beat Petr maybe 5-6 years later if he was still swimming. I never got the chance because he stopped before that, but I think I was getting closer and closer. But I got lucky because Marouf knew Peter, and it helped me a lot, because Petr wouldn't really be nice to anyone in the race. He would do his own race, and you do your own race. But he took me a little bit under his wing because he knew Marouf, and I think maybe Marouf can confirm that. But I think Marouf took Peter under his wing when Petr started swimming in some race, and then I felt like he was like a big brother to me. He would let me draft off him, something he doesn't let a lot of people do, and maybe because he knew I wasn't a threat right now. but I really like the relation I had with Petar, and I think it's in part because of Marouf.
Mo, when did you first get to know Petter?
It's a long time ago. It was 1997. I met him in Macedonia, and I was kind of like I was really like I was the best Egyptian swimmer this time, best Arabian swimmer, but I was always try to communicate with everyone. And Peter was, I think it was first race or second race for Peter, and same. I believed in the V. I believe this guy will be amazing swimmer. Peter was amazing. Like kind of like focus. He was always alone, and I find this guy. I don't know. I have feeling this guy gonna be world champion. Gonna be something. So I asked him. I invite him to Egypt. I invite him to come to Egypt to swim Egyptian competitions. So I told him, Peter, we have some race in Egypt, and we have a lot of prizes money there, and I invite him to come to Egypt. And when Peter came to Egypt, I invite him at my home, and like it's kind of like I believed in this guy. I saw him maybe a long time ago when it was second race for him, but I saw this guy would do something. And almost we was competing, me and him in this race. It was Nile River Marathon. And after that, like this is the beginning to me. After that, we became like close friends.
Xavier, you got your first big podium position in 2012, Lake Memphremagog, home crowd, a French Canadian Moy. Tell me about the experience of standing on the podium with that crowd.
This is a really important moment for me because 2 months, maybe not even 2 months, but maybe a month and a half earlier, I was in Portugal for the Olympic selection, and I think I finished 20th, and the other Canadian finished second, Richard Weinberger, and he made the Olympics. So I think I was just off the selection, but still, it was really heartbreaking for me. And we trained really, really, really hard, like coming from really big 4 years. I was I was in training camp in Hawaii. I went to Brazil, Argentina. I was in Belgium for a month and a half prior to this selection, and we trained really hard. I was in the best shape of my life, and the thing I told myself is like, you still have the race in your hometown, so like let's keep swimming. You're in the best shape of your life. Let's see what we can do there. And I was dreaming of a podium, and I couldn't believe I finished second. And I remember this race so well because I think it was Trent Grimsey won that race, right?
Yeah.
And Trent was just so strong, and he just took off. And then I just said, "Oh, I'm not strong enough to follow him." And then just a little bit later, I'm like, "Or maybe I am." And then I took off, and I swam with Damian and another swimmer, and we really raced. And at the end of the race, I had so much energy, and I just outsprinted Damien, and I couldn't believe this. Like Damien was a legend, and I would just outsprint him, and everyone, all my family, all my friends, they all thought I was behind Damien because there was another swimmer, and so they were cheering, and they were like, "Oh no, he's fourth." But then I touched, and they're like, "Oh, Xavier's second," and then it was a really great moment. And I remember my dad came on the dock, he hugged me, and then we all my friends with the nice posters, and it's special because at this point I'm 22 years old. I sacrificed so much. I said no to my friends so many Friday nights, so many Saturday nights. And now they're all there. They're following me. They're cheering for me, and it's like I could say, like, this is why I said no. Thank you so much for being there.
Stephen Munatonis was excited when I told him we were going to talk, and he said, "Have Xavier tell you about Lake Saint Jean, 2014, Tommy Stefanowski."
Yeah,
I think they gave Tommy the win, but it was.
we actually got both the win. It's a tie.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2014 was that was a special year because if just to put a little bit of context, we came second again in 2013 in Magog. So 2014 was really the year where we wanted to win Magog. So we had the plan on swimming Lac Saint Jean, just to swim Lac Saint Jean, then Magog, but really focus on Magog. And in 2013, in Lac Saint Jean, I finished fourth, fifth overall, but fourth in the men. And I did a little mistake just coming in the last 500 meter. I just started sprinting, and then I saw everyone, Tommy, Damian, Olga, they all passed me, and I was like a really beginner swimmer, and I'm like, what's going on? And I was dead. So 2014, same thing happened. Me, Damian, and Tommy, we were coming in the last 500 meters, but I was ready for it this time, and we just exchange the front with Tommy, exchange, and at maybe two meters from the end, I went from his hips to his hand, and we there's a picture. You see both of our hands at this close to the finish pad, and we're just so close. And because I was a little bit behind just before touching, but I slingshot myself. The announcer's like, "Oh, Tommy won," but in reality, I touched maybe 1/10 of it, like 0.05 before Tommy, and we barely touched the finish pad. So they had to double check, and I double touch just in case they saw that I missed it, but I knew I touched it, and Tommy said he knew he touched it as well. So it was a what we waited for an hour and a half, Marouf, to know the results. And at the end, we were both sitting on the podium. Me, Tommy, and Marouf was there as well. And they're just announcing for the first time ever there's a tie in the 32K, a non-voluntary tie, because I think there was one earlier in the earlier years, but they banned this practice afterwards. And they're like, for the first time ever, there's a tie, non-voluntary. Tommy Stepanovsky of Macedonia and Xavier Desharnais from Canada. First time in 20 years a Canadian wins the Traversée, and it was amazing. Like, I couldn't ask for a better outcome, because Tommy's like another grandfather, but he's like a big
grandfather.
I wish he won't hear this.
Tommy was a bit older, maybe 20 years older or something. He was
yeah.
And 2015, you had the podium all to yourself in Lake Saint Jean.
Yeah, it was I think it was one of the last races I did with Marouf in my boat, and I say that because having Marouf in my boat was really a big plus for me, because he knew open water swimming, so he knew strategies, he knew feeding, he knew other swimmers, and he knew me. He knew me like nobody knew me better than Marouf. So he knew how I was feeling, how I was swimming. He knew he knew I had more in me than myself. And in 2015, everyone was doubting me, like, "Oh, last year was luck. This year you won't have the same luck." And we had the worst conditions. And it was really a really hard year, maybe 16, 17 degrees in the lake. Wave 4 to 6 feet high, and early on, me and two other swimmers, we just took a different course, and we left, and it was in the big waves, and we took off, and we knew we would be 1, 2, and 3 for sure, because we were alone, and then someone caught up to us, and then we managed to swim past him. Me and the other Quebecer, we managed to swim past the third guy, the French guy, Bertrand. And then we were the two of us together, and we were rival, two Quebecer, like friends, but more rival than friends. And at 3K from the end, that's a really good story. I think you'll like this. At 3K from the end, Philippe stops, and he asked me, "Hey, Xavier, let's touch together, like you last year with Tommy." And I told him, I'm sorry, Phil, I wish we could, because we worked really hard, both of us, but we can't. We'll be disqualified, because that was the rule. There's no intentional tying. And he was really mad. And he was like, "Okay, well, I'm going." and then start swimming really fast. And he was faster than me in the mile. He was a faster swimmer than me. And I couldn't swim this fast. And so he took maybe 50 meters on me like in a short amount of time. And then Marouf said like, David, wait, stay here. And he said, just follow me, don't go faster. And then with the boat, he went in front of me and he started catching Philippe. And there was so much waves, you could only see the boats. You couldn't see the swimmer. I saw Philippe's boat in front of me, but when Philippe looked at me, he only saw Marouf in the boat. So Marouf went a little bit faster and he was catching. And then when Philippe saw this, he broke mentally. He started too early, like me in 2013 or maybe. And then when I saw that I was catching him without trying to catch him, I just sprinted and I passed him maybe at 1.5K from the end. And I took like I put a minute or so in between us, and I finished alone. And this is all I think. Well, I had some part of it, but Marouf, this little strategy was the thing that made him and made him die mentally, and it made me win.
For the viewers who aren't aware, in the late 1950s and the 60s and even the 70s, it was not uncommon for the top two swimmers, to make a deal. There was a lot of prize money back then. They would make a deal and say, we're going to finish this together. And we'll split the first and second prize money. And over time, it became kind of not sportsmanlike to do that. My last question for you, Xavier, if you hadn't grown up in Quebec, if you'd grown up somewhere else in the world without these famous swimmers coming to Quebec, without the big races, do you think you would have joined this sport?
That's a tough question, because like for sure it helped me want to do it. Like seeing Stoichev, seeing Gabriel Chailloux, the Quebecer as well. But I think if Marouf would have been my coach somewhere else, I think I would have gone there, because he was an ex open water swimmer, and I was a really good long distance swimmer in the pool. And what we found is that I was getting better and better every time I would go a distance over. So I was good in the mile, but then I was better in the 5K, and then I was better in the 10K, and then this would help my mile, this would help my 5K, and I would get better just by swimming more and more and more. So I think we would have done the math and said, like, there's these races that are longer than 30K. You could be really good at this, and I think I would have finished in the sport. But if Marouf wasn't there, I doubt it. So I think it's a combination of the two of it. Like growing up in near Magog, seeing the professional swimmer, and having Marouf, an ex open water swimmer, as a coach, and a good one, still has the record in Zurich. And I think that would have been that's what I've made the difference. That's what I've made.
Hey guys, thank you very much for your time today. I'm going to stop the recording now.